Hello, my name is Paul Pickering. I'm Director of the ANU Australian Studies Institute, and we're going to talk to you this afternoon about our model for the Republic. Ben, why don't you tell people what the Jones Pickering model is?
Oh, my pleasure. And my name's Ben Jones, and I'm at Central Queensland University. But when we devised this model, I was here at the ANU as well, and we very immodestly came up with the Jones Pickering model for a republic, though I hasten to point that is in the tradition that republic models tend to be eponymously named. But the basic mechanics of it is that each state and territory parliament would nominate a worthy Australian in their estimation, and it's a two-step process, and the second step is that then goes to a popular vote, and that's a mechanism for choosing a head of state that doesn't need to involve the British monarchy. So Paul, do you want to if you can stretch your memory back to 2017, how did we come up with this model for an Australian republic?
Well, thanks, Ben. As you remember, we were sitting in a bar of a hotel, drinking Qingdao beers, and I told you about 10 years earlier, in the aftermath of the defeat of the Republican referendum, when I was sitting around scratching some notes about how to address the issue of either a direct election or a constitutional monarchy on a more conventional model. And you immediately jumped on that. My version was that there would be a popular vote in every state and territory, and that the parliament would then decide. You immediately jumped on that and flipped it, and that was the origin right there of the model we're calling Jones Pickering.
Yeah, that's right. And if I recall also, I think I might have given a paper, this was at Peking University, and so China was an interesting forum, actually, an interesting place to think about the good things about Australian democracy, as well as things that could be improved. And I think we discussed also this tension between wanting to preserve the good stuff, and I think that really is the driving force behind the minimal model that was proposed in '99, is that we've got a system where even if it is a foreign British monarch, it's so well understood that this is a titular head of state, and it preserves the supremacy, I guess, of the parliament. But then the problem, of course, is that it doesn't seem very democratic if the people don't get the final say. So my recollection also was trying to find a hybrid that can take the best features of what we've got, but also the best features of what the direct electionists say, because they do have a point, don't they, that there needs to be some stamp of approval from the people.
Yeah, absolutely. And the need for a hybrid model is to avoid Republicans of one stripe voting for the monarchy because they won't accept the model of the Republic, which is a reflection of the way in which we need to get a question right in order to ensure that people have a yes-no say, but also have on the table a model that works, that the Parliament then implements.
And in terms of finding a path through, I guess, this gridlock between direct electionists and minimalists, I was very interested in the papers of the 1998 Constitutional Convention,
Yes.
where you did have the ARM with a very firm minimalist model, but then there was a surge of support for direct election, and a lot of it came from Queensland. And it's worth noting, Queensland had the lowest yes vote, so they absolutely rejected the minimal model in '99. But for the 1998 convention, they sent a majority of Republicans down, and that really tells you that they want a republic but didn't like what was being offered. And Clem Jones, the Lord Mayor of Brisbane, former, really led that group. But what struck me going through the voting models, there were four, two minimalist and two direct election. The first direct election was knocked out pretty quickly, Bill Hayden's one. But then the real Republicans got behind another hybrid model that Jeff Gallop, who became the WA Labor Premier, put out. And he said, why not just Parliament select 3 to 5 people and then that go to a popular vote? and the real Republicans, David Muir and Clem Jones and Ted Mack and Phil Cleary, they all got behind that. And I suppose that put in my mind that there is a path forward. If they would support Gallup's hybrid model, then maybe they'll support this hybrid model as well. And of course, the big news, which is very exciting for us, is that the ARN in 2022 announced the Australian Choice model, which is really built on the Jones Pickering model. So how did you react to hearing that they'd taken something we'd sort of dreamt up in a bar in Beijing and want to really push it?
Yeah, look, I was delighted because what it shows is that something that's arises from a conversation and then is published can have a genuine impact on advancing a debate. For me personally, I think this presents an opportunity for us to go forward in a way that will ensure that a vote is fair and balanced between the two models. Now, as you know, the Australian Republican movement has made some amendments to the Jones Pickering model. Perhaps you could tell us what those are.
Sure, and I'd like to get your reaction to them as well.
Sure.
So the first and probably the most significant one, and this it is from the ARM, but it's based on, I think they said they consulted something like 10,000 people in surveys, as well as some serious constitutional experts. The first one they came up with was, instead of just the states and territories, also the federal government gets to appoint 3 nominees, so increasing the field to 11. Panicking that my maths right there, but I think 8 states and territories and 3.
Yeah, no, look, I think that's a perfectly acceptable amendment to the model.
Absolutely, I do too. And one thing I actually particularly like about it is some of the initial feedbacks. We published the Jones Pickering model in the conversation in 2018, and a lot of the comments I got back were actually from Tasmania and South Australia and smaller states going, oh, won't this favour New South Wales and Victoria, which I don't think it would, but it was just interesting to see that fear come up. And by having the federal government appoint another 3, you never know who they'll pick, but chances are it may be 2 from New South Wales or 2 from Victoria, and that sort of splits their vote and probably creates a more level playing field. So I also supported that idea. Another one that they changed, which I've got mixed feelings about, was we put that it would be a non-compulsory first past the poll vote. They've changed it to make it the same as normal voting as an election, compulsory and preferential. What was your response to that change?
Well, I'm less worried about that because I think one of the most appealing features of our democratic system in Australia is the compulsory voting. And so having that mirrored in the election of the most important titular figure in the Commonwealth is, I think, acceptable.
Yeah, I suppose the logic when we chose non-compulsory was just to have another indicator that this isn't as important as the vote for Parliament, but it's also not a hill I would die for. It's probably one I'd rather just get wide polling and whatever's more likely to pass a referendum, because it isn't a make or break issue. But what about the third one, which was we indicated specifically that states and territories would have to have a 2/3 majority in their parliaments of who they nominate to really address that it shouldn't be a party political, although you get a landslide like in WA, maybe you still can get a 2/3, but in most normal situations, it means it would have to be a bipartisan appointment. That's been changed, not that it has to be something different, but just that each parliament can choose how they nominate. So what were your thoughts when you heard of that change?
Well, that's probably the one that I'm most concerned about, because the ultimate way to break a deadlock in our federal system is, of course, a joint sitting of both houses. And so I think having the bar set that high would most likely produce bipartisan candidates.
And that also, I think, is listening to the lessons from the past. And during the 1990s, that was a common concern. People accused Paul Keating of doing the whole thing because he wanted to be president, and having some sort of mechanism to make it less likely that a former politician, or at least a clearly partisan appointment, because of course you've got almost wall-to-wall Labor right now. So if the ARM's model was in place right now, you would have a situation where potentially, if each Labor state wanted to just nominate a former Labor-aligned person, they could do so, and then the people actually wouldn't have much of a choice.
Yeah, look, it's been great to recall those days where we scratched around, and I have to say that whilst the model has lost our names, it provides a basis for genuine constitutional change, and I'd love to see it go forward to a referendum.
Absolutely, and it's been such a pleasure to reminisce with you on how we came up with the Jones Pickering, now the Australia Choice model. Thanks,
Indeed.
Paul.
Thanks, Ben.